Hello, friends. Welcome to the LeggLife podcast. My name is Adam.
My name is Sherry.
Sherry Beth, what episode is this?
Baker's Dozen.
Nope, it's number 13. And every episode I say a Baker's Dozen, and when we finally get to the actual Baker's Dozen...
the actual Baker's Dozen.
I'm not going to say it. Nope. Because I'm a pain.
Yeah, you are.
You guys, I'm going to throw this out there from the beginning of this episode. I'm going to make a very bold claim. Sherry, you ready for this?
Okay.
I genuinely believe this has the potential to be the most important podcast that we have recorded.
I might agree.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This is one of those topics that, to me, every single person, I feel like, will be able to relate with. But that for whatever reason, we just don't talk about.
Correct.
Sherry Beth, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about crises of faith.
Especially with all the things you've been going through.
Yes.
This is a podcast that we wanted to record, but we wanted to wait for the right time.
Yeah, we came up with this idea a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, even just like talking about the idea of doing a podcast on this, I couldn't get through without crying.
Yeah. But at the same time, we wanted to do it when we were still in the middle of it.
But it was a little too raw.
It was too
still.
raw. Mm-hmm. Yep. We didn't want to wait to get on the other side when everything's like butterflies and puppies.
Right.
We wanted to have, like, honestly, just a really honest conversation.
Right.
About crisis of faith, going through hard things, wrestling with God. Like, where does your faith intersect, like, some of the crappiness of life?
Right.
So we are going to talk all about that today.
Yes, we are.
Sherry, are you excited about this conversation?
Yeah, well, I'm excited for the outcome of the conversation. Does that make sense?
It actually makes total sense.
Yeah, the conversation itself is, I think, going to be hard, and I can't guarantee that I'm not going to want to cry sometimes.
I also can't guarantee we're not going to curse.
Correct.
So
because as we were kind of discussing it, there were a lot of cursing.
And so I would just say, like, no, that this might not be the most family friendly.
We're going to try.
Which is really funny because, like, what we're talking about is faith. But I think that that's just the reality of what it means to have a crisis of faith and to go through, like, really hard times and believe that God is big enough to wrestle with.
Right.
So let's give a little bit of backstory for people who may be tuning into the podcast who don't know kind of what you've been going through.
Yep.
Walk us through the last few months.
So in a brief nutshell, I had an allergic reaction to a medication, and it manifested in a rash, kind of all over my body, like spots, just a psoriasis kind of rash. And that was mostly dealt with and taken care of by the end of December. And came back with a vicious vengeance early January. So I think I had probably a week and a half or so of okayness, and it just came back like full force and horrible, really, really, really bad.
And I want to add one thing, because I think that, and we've used this word through this whole journey, rash, and I honestly feel like that minimizes what you dealt with.
It wasn't just a rash. It was, even the stuff in December, like, you know, kind of looking back at pictures, I was just like, I wish that, like, the worst of that was the worst of what I'm dealing with now.
Yeah.
And the worst of that would be, like, the best of what I'm dealing with now.
Yeah. And the reality is that this is the kind of thing, and our doctor, one of the very first things she said to us is that, like, this is a life-threatening thing.
Right.
This is the kind of thing that some people don't make it through. This is significant. A large number of people are hospitalized.
Yeah.
And so this is... To call it a rash does feel like it minimizes the severity of what you went through.
Correct.
I mean, there were a lot of days...
Going through, yeah.
It's
going not
through.
Done yet.
That's right. There were a lot of days when, honestly, getting up out of a chair to go to the bathroom or brush your teeth or get water or anything felt like an insurmountable task.
Yes. So I have had chronic pain my entire life, and that's related to my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a whole nother thing, but is contributing to this. So I'm kind of always in pain, and I will say, even with like broken bones and, you know, other horrific things that I have dealt with throughout my life, this has been some of the worst pain I've ever been in.
So let's talk a little bit about the role that faith has played through this. First of all, give us like a little backstory. Like, give us like what is faith to you? Like, what does your faith journey look like?
Okay. Well, I grew up in the Midwest.
Honestly, you can just like end right there, and we all kind of get it.
No, I got it. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, you know, grew up in Bible Belt, and you know, faith has always been important to me. My relationship with God, with Jesus, has always been important to me. And I think that for a long time, it was what was told to me, and I was told what to believe. And I think, in a previous podcast, you had mentioned like one of the things that you admired about me was that I, or maybe it was in a vlog, was that I question everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. I've always questioned everything, to the detriment of a lot. But I think just in the last probably decade or so, I've like truly questioned what is it that I actually believe.
Yeah,
and digging into the Bible for myself and not just saying, oh, well, my pastor says this is what this means, and so I'm just going to blindly follow. Like for me to actually like dig in and be like, what do I actually believe this is saying?
Yeah, it wasn't enough for you to have been raised in the church. It wasn't enough for like your family to have had a faith.
Right.
Like if this wasn't a faith that made sense to you, you were going to scrap it.
Right. And so, yeah, like actually figuring out what is it that I actually believe.
Yep.
And so really I would say like in the last decade or so, I think my own personal faith has actually grown quite a bit. Just because I have wrestled with what is it that I believe. And so I think through all of this, I think this is really not the first time I've really had like a crisis of faith, but I think this is the biggest.
Yep.
This is the biggest, and I think the hardest, and I think really like the crisis that it's not even just a crisis, like it's full on just like wrestling with God and like truly like, do I believe that he is actually good in the midst of all of this? And I'm not sure yet.
Well, yeah. And honestly, this is one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation now, is that I think one of the dangers is you get through something and you look back on it and all of a sudden like you're kind of looking back on it through like you've seen the conclusion, you've seen like the way things are finished. I think there's health in having this conversation in the middle of the wrestling.
Yeah, and part of why I didn't want to do this a couple weeks ago was that it was just very, very raw, and I like I said, I really did want to just like cry at everything, which is not super conducive to talking, because when I cry, I, like that, it overtakes everything. So talking it through was going to be really hard, but I also, even right now, like I'm struggling a little bit with wanting to talk about it, because I just don't want to be one of those people who is just like in the dark times, like it's just like, God doesn't exist and God doesn't care, and then things are looking better, so JK, like we're best buddies again. I don't want to be that kind of person.
Yeah.
And so even now that like I'm kind of being able to look back and kind of see where God has been in some of this, like it still just makes me want to question why I was in that super dark place to begin with, and like what put me there, and am I actually out of it? I don't actually think I'm out of it yet, but
well, this is one of the things that I like, and that like it's been, and fun is a weird word to use, but it's been interesting to watch you wrestle with this, because you didn't want to fall off either end of this. Like you didn't want to be one of those people that was just like, I'm done with God forever, I don't believe he exists. Like you didn't give up your faith, but at the same time, you also didn't want to fall into the thing that I have seen the most, which is like just these feel-good Christian platitudes, like, oh, you're just going through a hard time, and like God's gonna redeem this for his good, and everything the evil one, you know what I mean? And just like you weren't willing to go there, where just like you lied about how you were feeling.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of friends, and if you're listening to this, please do not feel bad, but like, there was so many people who would like send me worship songs or send me Bible verses, or, all these things that are like, I heard this wonderfully uplifting song. Even Adam actually played the song for me and was just like, I really feel like this is kind of what you're going through. And I was like, that's complete crap. Like, it's all about how God's going to rescue you and everything's going to be okay. And I was just like, that is not where I'm at. Like, I do not believe that God is going to rescue me out of this.
Yeah.
He has the ability to, and he's choosing not to.
Well, and I think that was one of the things that we had talked about. And this is the question I want to ask you, Sherry. So tell us what the crisis of faith, like, what did it look like for you? Because you grew up in the faith, grew up in the church, you like have this faith, but then all of a sudden, like, you go through this health issue. That this God you've believed in has the ability, with the snap of his fingers,
he doesn't even have to snap. He can just do it.
Like to take all of this away. And
right.
Even if he doesn't take it away, just like give me some relief.
Right, because I had about 2 months with zero relief.
And yeah, so it's like literally nothing. And you knew that like there were people around the world praying for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yet God's completely silent, completely like gone.
Right.
What did that like? What were your like feelings in the middle of that?
Well, and it's so hard for me, and that's where I think this is a good time to do this because I'm not completely out of it yet.
Yep.
I am still healing, and like I said earlier, like I can kind of see where he has been in the midst of some of this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still like he still has the ability to just make this go away, and he's still choosing not to, which just makes me angry because I'm still uncomfortable and in pain and tired, so tired, and you know he's still just like absent, like I still feel abandoned.
So what does that do to you? Like where's the crisis of faith in that?
I think it's so I don't know, and I don't know how to explain. I think like, but it's and I don't even know if it's really a crisis of faith. I think it probably is, but I think that it's and I mentioned this earlier when we were kind of discussing this. I think just the fact that I'm willing to push back.
Yep.
And continue to question God and, you know, just be like, where are you in this? And why are you choosing to abandon me? I think that is actually good. I mean, I think that means that I haven't actually lost my faith.
That's right.
And so I think, you know, I think he's big enough to handle it. You know, Jacob like literally wrestled with God. And I think that, you know, he can handle it. Like I think, you know, if your God is only your God when everything is happy and wonderful, your God's pretty small. And so I think that he's big enough to handle this. And I think, you know, I'm going to get on the other side of this and I think my faith will be stronger. I'm just not there yet. I'm still in the questioning, like, why are you allowing this to happen to me? You say you love me. This does not feel like love.
We've been talking a lot about the Psalms.
Yes.
Because I think that the Psalms are one of those things that, like, I don't know, if you're raised in the church, which I wasn't, you were, the Psalms are one of those things that, like, there are some that you touch into. It's like the Lord is my shepherd. It's like, we'll talk about that all day long.
Oh, sure.
We love that
and
one.
all the Psalms that are turned into these wonderfully happy worship songs.
Beautiful.
Right.
But
you don't listen to, there's no songs about what, Psalm 88?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to read this because this is one Sharon and I were talking about earlier. Psalm 88 is known as the darkest psalm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because, like, if you believe that the Bible is like the inspired word of God, that everything is in there, is there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that this verse, or not this verse, this chapter, and it is a little bit long. It's 18 verses. I'm going to read it all. And then we're going to talk about this because, like, this is where, like, Sherry's been.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so it's like, because
like they put my thoughts into, they put my tangle of thoughts and just this crazy chaotic tornado that's happening in my mind into an actual, like, poem.
And this is the kind of thing, like, growing up in Sunday school, there was never like a felt board Jesus about this chapter.
No.
Right? Nobody's ever made a Veggie Tales on Psalm 88.
Right.
Right? And so here's what it says. It says, it starts off with, like, it's interesting, and we'll touch on this.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with, like, almost like this reminder to himself.
Right.
It says, Lord, you are the God who saves me. Day and night I cry out to you. May my prayer come before you. Turn your ear to my cry. And then things change.
And then the truth.
It says, I'm overwhelmed with troubles, and my life draws near to death. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I am like one without strength. I am set apart with the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, who are cut off from your care. You have put me in the lowest pit, in the darkest depths. Your wrath lies heavily on me. You have overwhelmed me with all of your waves. You have taken me, my closest friends, and have made me repulsive to them. I am confined and cannot escape. My eyes are dim with grief. I call to you, Lord, every day. I spread out my hands to you. Do you show your wonders to the dead? Do their spirits rise up and praise you? Is your love declared in the grave, your faithfulness in the destruction? Are your wonders known in the place of darkness, or your righteous deeds in the land of oblivion? But I cry to you for help. In the morning my prayer comes before you. Why do you reject me and hide your face from me? From my youth I have suffered and been close to death. I have borne your terrors and am in despair. Your wrath has swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. All day long they surround me like a flood. They have completely engulfed me. You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. It's like, yeah, hey, sing that, worship leader in your tight pants.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like, we were kind of talking, like, where is the lament of, like, people deal with crap all the time. Like, I'm not the only one going through a really hard time.
No, Sherry and I were saying that, like, churches should have lament services.
Yeah.
Where, like, you can just show up when, like, life really sucks.
And it's those kinds of songs, like, you know, you have completely abandoned me. Your wrath has put me here. Like, you have placed me in this pit, and you're doing nothing about it.
Well, that's one of the things that and this is going to sound weird, that's one of the things I like about this psalm.
Yeah.
What it feels so relatable to me is it is so accusatory.
Yeah.
You have done this to me. You're not healing me. Like, you've put me here. You have ruined me. You've taken everything that is good. Like, and you're not doing anything.
Darkness is my closest friend. Not you.
Not you. Darkness. And honestly, like, that feels really relatable.
It really, really does.
And there's something that, I don't know. Actually, let me ask this. Is there something comforting about that?
Yes. And it's, you know, it's weird, but it really is like, okay, I am not the only one who has dealt with this. Like, I'm not the only one who has felt completely abandoned by this God who says he loves me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
I mean, there is comfort in that. Like, other people have gone through this and they've made it through.
So one of the things we don't want to do is kind of what I talked about earlier is you don't want to go like Christian platitudes, right? And just like, oh, God's like,
everything's going to work out for the good. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like that's true right now.
Yeah, totally. So what does, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Where in the journey do you see this going? Like, where do you see, obviously you don't know the end of the story. Like you said, you're still in the middle of it, but like, where in the journey are you? What are you kind of seeing happen faith-wise?
I do see, kind of being able to look back for the last 3 months, I can see where I think he has been. Yeah. God has been in the midst of all of this.
Can we talk about a couple of those things? Because and obviously I have been experiencing this in a different way.
Yep.
Right? Like, you're physically going through it.
I don't want to even say secondhand because you have been dealing with this firsthand as well.
Sure. And so, like, I've had a lot of, like, moments, because I remember, again, every 2 hours waking up and, like putting lotion on. Right. And, like, the whole time putting lotion on Sherry, just, like, praying. Right?
Weeks and weeks and weeks where we didn't get any more than 2 hours of sleep at a time.
And just praying the whole time putting lotion on, right? Just, like, you're putting lotion on her skin. It's, like, what a perfect time to just, like, be praying. And literally just praying, like, God, have mercy. Mm-hmm. Like, have mercy. Like, I remember that was, like, the word that I've prayed the most was just, like, mercy.
Right.
And nothing.
And just nothing.
Like, nothing.
And honestly, like, I'm going to be real honest right here. A lot of my prayers were like, if you actually care at all, give me some relief. Anything. Yeah. Anything at all.
And nothing.
And just complete silence.
Totally.
Cool. Thanks, God.
Yeah, hey, thanks. Hey, you're really being great right now.
Oh, so no, you don't care at all. Cool. Yeah. Okay, perfect. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate that. Guess we'll just buy more CeraVe lotion since you're not going to do your job.
Right. Yep.
And so we'd wake up and going through this for me, kind of watching Sherry. It's obviously been different for me, but I'm curious, Sherry, where has God worked? Because on an Instagram live the other night, I was talking about what the journey's been like, and it was the first time in 3 months that I kind of had almost like, I don't want to say like an aha moment, but it was almost like like maybe there were times that it really felt like you were being a pretty shitty God, but maybe like you had gone prior in some stuff.
Yeah. So I think for me, just the kind of things that, like, okay, so I have dealt with psoriasis my entire life. And there are things that I know I have to do. When I am having a psoriasis flare, I have to keep it moisturized. And just the extent of this, because it did cover, my entire body, head to toe, it was, much more, it was so much worse. And so I really, really, really just had to keep it moisturized. And so kind of, fairly early on, well, not even, I guess, we were probably 5 or 6 weeks into, like, the worst of it before we would literally set our alarms so that 24 hours a day, every 2 to 3 to 4 hours, depending on how it was doing that day, we would completely lotion me, like head to toe.
Yep.
And just that, I think, really actually helped. Some of the medications that I was on from the get-go, that were doing absolutely nothing to actually help this, just make me thirsty.
Yep.
And so I've been drinking a lot of water,
which you historically do not drink.
I historically hardly ever drink water. Like, and I know it's terrible, but like it just doesn't occur to me. But this, like, I was actually just thirsty all the time, so I was just guzzling water all the time, and then really once we got the diagnosis, kind of being able to be like, oh, okay, so the reason that people are hospitalized is dehydration, and because it gets the rash, for lack of a better word, just gets so dry that it splits open and those get infected. And
that's the thing that led to death in most cases.
Right. Those are the things that lead to death. This is dehydration and these infections.
Yep.
And so really, I mean, before we even knew what this was, I had been putting things like practices in place that were preventing this. My skin did still split, and I mean, all over. But we were taking care of them, keeping them clean because they hurt like hell. And I was constantly keeping them clean and keeping them moisturized. And so that, trying not to get to the point where it did split.
But then another thing, Sherry, even we're talking about this, like even your EDS.
Yes. Even with my EDS, I think that it's kind of helped with this because, the EDS makes my skin very stretchy. And so my skin is just naturally stretchier than most people's.
Yep.
And so I think that the fact that really, like, I still got splits, I think kind of talks to how bad this was.
Yeah, totally.
But the fact that they weren't as bad as they maybe could have been.
If you wouldn't have had EDS.
If my skin was so tight. Like,
yeah.
I just, I think even like, your skin, I think that if it was pulling the way that mine was, it would have just ripped.
Which is where the infection happens.
Which is where these infections happen, right.
Yep.
And so I think, even just like my EDS, which is just the cause of all kinds of problems, might have actually been a blessing in some of this because my skin naturally had more give.
Yeah.
And so maybe I didn't split as much or as bad as I could have.
Yep. And so there were things that could have made this, even though this was and still is, been horrible.
And dangerous.
Mm-hmm. There are things that maybe made this better than it could have been.
Yes, because I have not had to be hospitalized for anything.
Totally. But then one thing also is even looking forward as far as like what could happen in your quality of life because of this diagnosis.
Right. So with this diagnosis, I was then made eligible for these injections, which will supposedly, and honestly, I say supposedly because I don't have this in my mental vocabulary. Like, I don't understand what this means.
Yeah, and you're not there yet.
And I'm not there yet.
Yep.
But it will supposedly completely, 100% clear up my psoriasis, which never, ever, ever in my life have I not had some kind of psoriasis somewhere on my body.
Yep.
And it's also supposed to help with, like, joint pain, which my EDS contributes to a lot. And so really, like, my quality of life might be better than I've ever actually known in my almost 40 years of life. Yeah,
there's a chance. We were actually talking about this just the other day, that with, like, our keto journey, the health journey we're on, but also, like, these injections because of this diagnosis. So you have, like, a big milestone birthday coming up in October.
Yes, I do.
And there's a chance that you go into the next decade of your life literally healthier than you've been.
Ever. Right.
That's crazy.
Yes. And so, with my psoriasis where it was prior, I was not eligible for these injections. And so, because it just wasn't bad enough. Like, it was obnoxious, but not life-threatening. But with this exfoliative erythroderma,
Nailed it. I'm very proud of you.
That is what made me eligible for these injections because it is life-threatening.
Yeah.
So, I think that there's some blessing in that. Like, it sucks that I've had to go through this, but I think that there's some blessing in that.
So there are some, looking back, we see some things that that we didn't know were going to be potential game changers that we think were.
Yes, and I'm going to touch on this for just kind of go back to that for a real quick second. I think even our lifestyle and the fact that we can't have kids.
Yeah.
Because of my EDS, it has been recommended that we don't have kids because that could be very, very bad for me. And, I was just kind of thinking, like, how many... If we had kids, I don't know how we would have handled this.
I genuinely don't know.
I mean, I do not know. And I know that there are people that have kids that have gone through this, and I don't know how they did it, because just the sheer, like, mental and physical and emotional and spiritual toll it has taken on me and you. How would we have even had a second for children?
Yeah, no clue.
I mean, I literally do not know.
No, it would have had to have been like, we hire a 24-hour live-in nurse.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's genuinely no way without something like that.
Right.
To have figured that out.
Yeah, and so even just like, just, I don't know, just the blessing of not having kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I think something like that just would have been even more detrimental to me getting better, and my job has been unbelievably understanding and really just like get what work done you can, and you take care of you. And like, they have not made me ever come in to work with all of this, and they have really never even pushed me or made me feel bad about, like, I only logged on for an hour today because I just don't have the energy or the mental capacity to work. Like, they've just never made me feel bad about that, which is unbelievable. And it actually makes me want to do more work for them, because I know that they care about me more than they care about the work that I'm producing for them.
Well, what's interesting, and we had this conversation, this was weeks ago. As with any job, and you've been at your job for...
almost 14 years.
A long time. Any job you go through that long, you have moments of like, I should go do something else. Like, I'm ready for a change.
Right.
It's like, I need to move on, just that kind of stuff. And you've had those kind of moments. And you've kind of wondered why you're still where you are. Yeah. But, like, honestly,
I think this is why.
I genuinely think that that's true.
Yeah.
That, the way that they have treated you through this has been worth anything. I mean, I just can't imagine, because the reality is they could have been like, well, it's a rash, show up.
Right.
And there was...
Or you're not able to work, so we're done with you.
We're done with you.
Right.
Yeah.
You're fired.
Yeah. But they've been like so gracious with you through something that's really hard. Yeah. And that's been... Yeah, so it's like you look at the way work has treated you, which gave you the flexibility to be home when you really couldn't have been anywhere else. Right. The fact that our lifestyle without the ability to have kids, again, gave you the ability to rest and heal.
Right. And I mean, I know that, a lot of people either just don't have a partner, or they don't have an understanding partner who will get up every 2 hours and put lotion on me. And like... for a long time, you got literally nothing from me. Mm-hmm. Like, I had nothing to give you. Yeah. And so, it was just taking care of me was our entire life. Mm-hmm. And, I just know that there's a lot of people that don't have that. Like, I'm so thankful that God gave me you.
Well, it seems like, thank you, by the way. It seems like everything, like in the middle of it, which again still are, it was easy to go kind of Psalm 88, like darkness is my best friend. But then starting to go through it a little bit, there are things that you look at and it's like, man, like if any one of these things would have been different, this could have ended very differently. Mm-hmm. Right? And all of a sudden you realize that it's like, wait, there's actually now a lot of things that had to have lined up for this to be turning out the way that it is. Yeah. And so Sherry, I want to talk a little bit about kind of where you're at today, like faith-wise. Like, what do things look like today? Because again, you're not out of this. You don't want to just like rainbows, puppies, and Jesus this thing. Mm-hmm. And so like, where are you at today?
And yeah, I think you said it. Like, I'm not out of it. Mm-hmm. I can see light far, far away. Like there is a light. And so I do feel like there's hope for me to get out of not just my physical stuff, but my spiritual stuff. But I'm not there yet. And I just really don't want to be one of those people who is, so angry at God in the midst of all this horribleness. And then the second things start to get better, you're like, just kidding. Like, we're besties. I don't want to be one of those people. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. And, so really, I think for me, like, I'm not out of it yet. So I am still angry and questioning. And, I think that's okay.
I agree.
I mean, I think that it's honestly healthy. I think that if you've never had any kind of crisis of faith or anything that makes you really truly question what it is you believe, I don't know that you can say you have a strong faith.
Yeah.
I just don't think that you can say that.
I think faith is one of those things there's a difference between belief and faith. I think that you can have belief. I think to me, faith happens when there's like a testing.
Yep.
And I think a lot of us live lives and go through this world with very little testing of faith, right? And this was one of those things that you're still having your faith tested.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot, Sherry, here in our home, also for me at work, and I need to explain this a little bit, is this idea of kairos moment.
Yeah.
So in the Greek New Testament, we see a couple words used for time. We see the word chronos. Think of like chronology. That is like a timeline of life, right? There's a beginning and an end point of this time. But we see this other word used, which is kairos. And a kairos is a specific moment in time. It's like an interruption. It's a breaking in. It's where like God's kingdom is breaking into yours, or like nerdy Star Wars fans, like disruption in the Force, right? It's a specific point in time, a moment of potential change. And so we ask, okay, what is a kairos moment you're learning in this? And what that means is like, what is something in a specific season or day or time where God is trying to get your attention? Now, these aren't fully baked ideas, right? These are like cookie dough. And so what happens is that
I do love cookie dough.
I love me some cookie dough. And it's like biggest distraction ever. And so when we talk about like, okay, what's a kairos moment? What we're really saying is like, okay, what do you think God might be saying to you in this, right? Where do you think he might be trying to get your attention? And so, Sherry, I was thinking that we could even end this episode not answering the two questions we always do, but like answering the question, like, what's the kairos moment currently? Not what's the like perfectly finished, fully baked idea. Right. Like, what do you think God might be trying to say to you?
I think that it's okay to question. It's okay to wrestle. It's okay to be angry. It's not like he doesn't know this anyway. I truly believe that God is all knowing. And I'm less believe right now that he's all loving, but I do believe he's all knowing. He knows my thoughts. He knows my heart. And I can pretend that I'm okay with everything and just move right along and everything's going to be fine, but that's not actually where I'm at, and he knows that. And so I think that, for me, like one of the biggest kind of realizations is that it is absolutely okay for me to be like, you know what, God, I don't like you right now.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you are a good God.
Yeah.
Because he knows that. He knows that's how I feel.
Yep.
And I think that it's okay, and I think that it will eventually strengthen my faith and give me a better relationship with him, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that that's actually very similar to what my kairos would be going through this, is that like, if God's not big enough to wrestle with, then God's not big enough to worship.
Right.
Right? Like if God can't handle me, like saying some like, hey, F you suck.
Right.
Then like, he's no God at all.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, if he's not big enough to hear that, if he's not big enough to take that, then like, I need to find a new God.
Right. If all he can handle is us just saying how wonderful and loving and perfect and great he is, he's not a very big God.
Yeah. Darkness is my best friend, not you, because you really suck.
Right.
Like,
you have put me here.
You've put me here.
Right.
Yeah, like that's in the Bible.
Yep.
Right? There are like peaceful pastures, and there are great things in there as well. But there's also the, like, you put me here, you've abandoned me.
You reject me.
Mm-hmm. I'm crying out and you're nowhere to be found.
Yep.
That's in there too.
It's in there.
And I think that there's comfort in that for me, because I've realized that, like, if it's in there, then it's also in our journey.
Yep.
And I just think that too often we don't talk about this. And so what happens, at least what I think happens, because this is what's happened to me, and I think it's what's happened to Sherry, is that when you get in those times and it feels like, man, I'm feeling some stuff that we don't talk a lot about in church. Mm-hmm. It feels like there might be something wrong with me, or my faith isn't strong enough, or my,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yes. And I think that, it's almost, I think the reason people don't talk about this is that it's kind of taboo. Like, oh, well, your faith just isn't strong enough, or, you know, and I just think that is a load of crap.
I think it is too.
I had other words I was going to say, but I'm going to try to keep this friendly. I
think we already ruined the family-friendly episode.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that it is perfectly okay to not be okay. And, you know, to kind of touch on, like, some of the worship songs and, you know, everything's going to be fine and he's our rescuer, which I say with a little bit of bite in my voice.
I was just because there was a lot of bite in that one.
I'm just not there yet. And, you know, I've been in seasons where I fully believe that and I can sing that with all my heart. And then this is just not one of those.
Yep.
The songs that have been speaking to me more are, I mean, they're secular songs, but it's... Missy Higgins, who's one of my favorite artists, has a song called Night Minds, where she's talking about kind of just sitting in the dark with your friend. And, like, I've been there too. I know that it's easier to jump off this ledge, but I'm not going to let you, because I've been through it. We're going to get through it together. Those are the kinds of songs that are actually speaking to me more than these God will rescue you bullcrap songs.
That's right. Well, and one of the things we were talking about earlier upstairs was even that, like, even with that concept, you know, kind of looking down the road at why this may have happened, which, again, I think that there will be a time for us to say, okay, well, what was the lesson, right?
Right.
In the middle of it's maybe not it. But one of the things we were talking about was this really amazing verse in, I think it's 1 Corinthians, that talks about how, like, the God of all comfort you, or the God of all comfort will comfort you, which, by the way, doesn't feel like he is, right? Let's be honest.
Nope.
It says the God of all comfort will comfort you. But then it says, so that.
Right.
You then can comfort those in their moment of need. That, like, what you've gone through, the comfort you've received from God isn't just for you, it's for somebody else who needs that.
Which doesn't make me feel a lot better right now.
No, not at all. It sucks. Well, not only
I don't want to have to go through this so I can help somebody else.
Let somebody else comfort them.
Right.
Right? Like, how about somebody else? Or being like, wait a second, like, you're not even comforting me.
Right. I mean, I do hope that, you know, there is an end to this and I can look back and be like, okay, like, I can see his fingerprints. And he was actually comforting me when I didn't think he was. But right now I don't feel it. I mean, I feel like he's got his foot on my neck and is laughing. Like, you know, I just, I'm not feeling the comfort right now.
Darkness is my best friend.
He's not the God of all comfort.
No,
right now.
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, I don't know, I think that's been helpful. It's also been helpful for me, to have somebody to have these conversations with.
Yeah.
Like, and to sort of wrestle out loud with, and to not, because there's a lot of people that we could have, there's a lot of people that we couldn't have this conversation with.
Yes.
Because what you'd get would just be like these empty faith statements and like pointless verses and like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Just
and
like,
honestly, even just like that, this is all going to make sense someday.
Yeah.
I don't care. I want it to make sense now. Yeah. I don't care if in a decade this makes sense. I need relief right now.
Yeah. And I'm getting none.
Right.
So this is not something we talked about, and maybe we'll dive deeper into this in the future. Nope, not enough, because I think you'll be able to answer this.
Okay.
In the middle, as you've gone through stuff, we've had a lot of people who have been very kind and very generous to us and very loving to us.
Yes.
But, like, what is something that brought you comfort in this from a person? What is something that, you don't have to give names, is there anything that, like, people did or someone did that was just like, you know what, like, in the middle of this, that was breath to me?
Yes, I've had a few. And honestly, it's been, the people who are just like, you know what, this sucks and I'm sorry and I'm going to sit with you through it. And, we can lament how unfair this is together.
Yeah.
Those to me have been kind of the most life-giving because that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like, it's, you know, I'm not okay. And I don't want people to tell me that it's going to be okay because I'm not there yet. I don't feel like I'm going to be okay. Like, I feel like I have been on this journey forever and there's no actual end in sight. Like, I can see this tiny little dot of light, but it's so far away that I'm not there yet. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to keep going through this to get to that light. Like, I just want to be done.
Totally. I love that answer because to me, and it's one of the things, and again, we hadn't talked about this at all beforehand. To me, I think that there is something about like the presence, like just like the withness, right? Like the showing up and like, I'm going to simply be with you in the shitstorm that you're going through,
right,
rather than trying to like convince you that it's not really that bad, or that like you're going to be okay, or that like there's going to be a brighter day tomorrow, or whatever. Like, I'm going to be with you in the middle of this, and like, I'm not going to help you try to fix it. I'm not going to help you like feel better about it. I'm just going to be with you in it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that to me is, there's something about that. And I feel like sometimes we don't do that as people because that feels like it's not enough.
Yes.
Right? I feel like I need to bring more. I need
to be positive.
I need to try to lift Sherry up, or I need to try to like make her feel better. When the reality is, and this is one of the things that I learned, oh gosh, fairly early on in this, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is that there was nothing that I could do to fix this. Right. And that was actually the hardest thing for me because like I'm a fixer, and I believe that like my role as your husband is to like take care of you and provide for you and care well for you. And then you go through something where I literally can't do that.
Right.
Like, I can't make this better.
You can put lotion on me every couple of hours, but like, it's not actually making it better. It's just helping it not hopefully get worse.
That's right. And so for me, it was even difficult because I wanted to just be like, what can I do? How can I make it better? What can I do? How can I make it better? And that didn't help at all.
Right.
And so what I actually had to do, and I think we'll probably talk about more about this in the future, is I realized early on that one of the things that would not be helpful was being always there.
Smothering
Sherry. Right. And so what I would do, what our routine was...
What do you need? How can I help? What can I bring in?
Is her water full? Does she have her medicine? Does she have food if she's hungry? I would have the things that she really needed, right? That I knew would help her, that would help her feel better. I would make sure she always had. Every 2 hours, wake up and do lotion. Whatever was needed. But then I would come downstairs.
Yeah.
And I would get on Instagram Live, or I'd work on Shop 49 stuff, or I would make myself invisible because I knew that if I just hovered, that would just completely not help at all.
It stresses me out because then I feel like I need to find things for you to do.
Yep.
And then I just feel like I'm babysitting.
And so like I needed to meet the practical needs that I could meet to help.
Yeah.
Like, I need to remind you that I loved you. You know what I mean? And like, what can I get you? But then like,
and that you're with me through it.
100%. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But then, like, I needed to go away.
Yeah.
Because you needed that.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you didn't need me hovering 24 hours a day. Like, what can I get you? What can I do for you?
Yeah.
And so like, I was with you as much as I could be, but then also realized that like, one of the most loving things I could do for you was disappear.
Yeah.
Right?
Which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it did. I mean, that was, yeah.
It was helpful.
That was helpful. Like, the most you could help me was to not help me.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
Yeah. I could be with you.
Yep.
But like, and let you know that, but that didn't mean constantly like bombarding you with things.
Right.
You guys, this has been a hell of a journey. And it still is.
It still is. And I'm tired.
Yep.
I'm still not sleeping well, and my skin is to the point where I don't have to set an alarm anymore, which is fantastic.
Totally.
But it's not better yet, and it's still painful and still itchy, and it's not good yet. I'm not okay.
Yep.
I'm still not okay.
Darkness is still a pretty good friend.
Darkness is still just my friend. And
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that I've been really proud because of watching you go through this, because I think that the work you've done on your faith over the last decade to really know what you believe is the thing that ultimately is going to be one of the things that carries your faith through this.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that if you hadn't have done that work, like, you would have trashed this whole thing.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, because it was like, what you said earlier, it's belief versus faith.
Yeah.
And that, I've had these beliefs my whole life. But they were just what I was told to believe.
Yep.
And so really actually making it my own and, truly to my core believing that ultimately God is good.
Yeah. Well, and I want to touch on that real quick. Because, like, to me, that's one of the thoughts that I've been having a lot during this is a wrestle with that statement.
Yeah.
And here's why, is that I think that too often I believe that God is situationally good.
Yeah.
So that God is good when, right? God is good if. God is good, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of, like, believing that God is good, like, that means that we believe that even when in the middle of this, there was no answer. And no relief.
Right.
God was still good. If the injections didn't work, God would have still been good. If God is ultimately good, not situationally good, then he is good, period. Not he is good if or he is good when.
Yeah.
And that's been a bit of a mind shift to me because, like, it's easy in, like, our middle-class American YouTuber life to have, like, oh man, isn't God really good? Like, we got another stimulus check. Oh man, isn't God really good? We got this. Or isn't God really good? We got this. But being able to say that God is good when
I feel completely abandoned by him.
That's different.
That's different.
That to me, that is faith, not belief.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that. And I think that kind of harkens back to my Kairos, that he's big enough to handle this. Like,
Yep.
Ultimately, I do know in my heart of hearts that he is good, that he loves me. I just don't feel it right now.
Yep.
And which is hard. I mean, I do feel like, I'm almost 40 years into my life of following him, and he doesn't care. Like, It means nothing to him right now,
Right.
Which stings a bit.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to make it through this. I know that I will, and I think that I'll be stronger on the other side of it. It's just really, really hard right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm proud of you for being able to wrestle with this stuff.
Thanks.
Yep. I'm looking forward, though, to being done with it.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
I just, and there's even just like things like plans we had this weekend that we have to cancel because I truly thought when we made the plans and we said we'd be there, that this would be at least far enough behind us that I would be okay going, and I'm not. And that breaks my heart that we can't be there for this big thing. And like, I hate that.
Yeah. Because of this.
Yeah. Because it's just hanging on.
So, not out of the woods, still on the journey.
Yeah.
But I think that this was the right time to have this conversation because I think that, here's what I'll say. I still believe that there are just going to be times in our life in the future when we're going to need to go back and listen to this and, like, remind ourselves of this.
Listen to some Missy Higgins, listen to some Death Cab for Cutie.
Read Psalm 88.
I will follow you into the dark. It's going to be fine. Yep.
Yeah, like read some Psalm 88 and be like okay.
This is where I'm at.
Yeah, this is where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, my best friend Darkness is back. What's up?
Hello, Darkness.
Hello, Darkness, my old friend. Oh my gosh, so good.
Since I think in song lyrics.
Oh my gosh. So friends, we love you guys. Thanks for listening to our discussion, our conversation on this. And here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to end this with some kind of
inspirational, joyous thing.
No, because it's not real.
It's not real. And honestly, like, I will say, like, those questions at the end of this podcast have been really, really hard for me because it's so hard for me to find joy or inspiration in any of this. Like, I have been sitting in complete darkness for 3 months.
Yep.
And so looking for those flickers of light has been really, really hard for me.
You just need to rise up on eagle's wings.
I do. I know.
All right, friends. We love you guys so much. Thanks for listening to LeggLife Podcast. You can connect with us on Instagram, where it's not all doom and gloom all the time, just so you know, or on Facebook. Thank you so much to our patrons who make this whole thing possible. They make everything that we do possible. And even more than that, like, I want to spike this. Their monthly support of us has even given us, like, financial breath that we need during this time as we're bombarded with medical bills. So like your supporting us has been life to us. So thanks to our patrons who make all this possible. Friends, we love you guys.
And I would actually be interested to know if you can just shoot us a comment on Facebook or Instagram or shoot us an email.
LeggLife@gmail.com.
LeggLife@gmail.com. Have you wrestled with this? Are you wrestling currently with this? How can we pray for you? I know that people even just saying, like, how can I pray for you? Or I am praying for you. Like, not even just like are you okay? No, I'm not okay. This is, just people just being like, this is how I'm praying for you, has been really great for me. So
that's good to know.
Yeah. And so, let us know if you're going through it and how we can pray for you.
I love that. Hopefully too many of you guys weren't offended when we were honest about our season of FUs to God.
Well, there's been a few. There's not
been,
even a few. There's been a lot.
I was just going to say.
There's been a lot.
There's not been a few. There's been a lot.
The swears occurring.
And I'm just thankful, and I keep going back to that thought that, like, if he's not big enough to take that stuff, then, like,
he's not big enough.
He's not big enough. Yep. It's like time to find a new God, because if he's not big enough to hear that from me, it's time to find a new one.
Yeah.
So, friends, we love you guys, and we will see you, or you'll hear us.
Yeah.
Still a terrible ending.
I know.
There's no good way to end a podcast. Know. It's weird.
Catch you later.
Catch you later, homies. So weird. We'll see you guys on the next LeggLife podcast.